A deadly serpent. From humble beginnings, the basilisk is born to strike terror in all those who cross its path. A most fearful creature, if ever there was. The infamous basilisk is known throughout history as a lethal and terrifying creature. Fear of the snake has stalled many a caravan and given reason to pause as much as any natural threat. Born from an egg laid by a rooster, the basilisk is a creature whose origin is an inherent perversion of nature. The corruption does not end there, for the basilisk is endowed with a venom so potent that the mere presence of this creature is said to blight the very earth itself. As a result, the basilisk is often depicted as inhabiting deserts, for no vegetation can survive near the serpent, as it ceaselessly salivates its poison, spreading it over the environment as it moves. Appearing as a yellow snake, the basilisk is, for all intents and purposes, no different from a normal serpent, bearing a white marking on its head as its only distinguishing feature. Some depictions include a frill or a crown-like growth from the head of this creature in addition to the white spot it carries. This growth gives the name of the basilisk, in that it roughly translates to Little King. The most striking difference in the form of the basilisk from that of other snakes is the way in which it moves. Rather than progressing in a more familiar serpentine motion, it is described as holding its head aloft, resembling a cobra rearing to strike. The form of the basilisk has fluctuated often. Original depictions hold that it is a particularly small serpent, no more than 12 finger lengths. However, various depictions of the basilisk in the Middle Ages sees it becoming more of a draconid in form, as it adopts the features of a chicken and even grows in size to resemble a cockatrice, a similar creature with a petrifying gaze. Modern depictions finds the snake becoming massive in both stature and girth. As the myth of the basilisk has evolved, so too have its abilities. Its lethality has extended from more than its corrosive venom to the creature's vision, granting it the ability to scorch anything it observes. Initially, this was only lethal when making eye contact with the basilisk, but eventually the myth evolved to cause all this creature perceived to simply burst into flames. The favorite method of dealing with the basilisk as a result of this alteration to the myth was for a knight or brave warrior to equip himself with a reflective shield, thus redirecting the power of the basilisk's gaze away from the knight to where it may do no harm as he approached for the killing blow. The vision of the basilisk was not the only thing to grow in lethality, as the venom eventually came to possess such potency that it was able to kill by proxy. Simply touching something which had come into contact with the venom could prove lethal. Thus, a knight holding a spear may be killed, as the venom travels along his weapon and poisons him by this indirect contact with the serpent. The only creature capable of overcoming the basilisk is the weasel. Immune to the venom of the basilisk and incredibly fast, the weasel is one of the few animals that did not need to fear the basilisk, the other being a cockerel, whose crowing was said to kill any basilisk that heard this cry. An interesting weakness, considering that this snake is born from cockerels. Due to its ability to destroy all it comes into contact with, the basilisk has come to represent evil and corruption. It is often given a malicious and hateful demeanor, seeking only to kill for the simple pleasure of the act. With these abilities and malicious will, the basilisk makes for quite a terrifying myth. Throughout history, snakes have made their way into many aspects of our culture, representing both danger and hope. The snake is a most ubiquitous symbol. The basilisk, however, is almost exclusively associated with negativity, evil, and danger. Not a single source refers to the basilisk in a positive light. In modern times, the creature is decidedly less common, finding few references outside of high fantasy, with the most popular depiction in Harry Potter, wherein a sewer-dwelling basilisk is allowed to grow to an enormous size, far beyond the usual depictions. This creature is still common in tabletop and video game circles, though it is depicted quite varyingly based on the work in which it is presented. Dungeons and Dragons sees the basilisk take on a giant lizard form, capable of turning the players into stone, where other works, such as The Witcher, demonstrate a closer resemblance to the cockatrice. The most common modern association is biblical. Many believers in Christianity have retroactively associated the basilisk with the serpent in the Garden of Eden, reinforcing and enhancing the connection with evil that these two creatures represent, to the point that the basilisk and serpent are almost interchangeable. History finds the basilisk referred to more frequently than it is in modern times. This serpent is found throughout many European bestiaries and can trace its origin all the way back to ancient Greece. Travellers in the ancient and medieval world were often wary of the basilisk while they went about their business, carrying roosters with them as a defence against the basilisk should one surprise them on their journeys. Areas said to be inhabited by a basilisk were sometimes avoided entirely by the less stout of heart. The proliferation of this myth was so great that even the famous Leonardo da Vinci saw fit to include it in his own bestiary, saying,
"This is found in the province of Cyrenaica, and is not more than 12 fingers long. It has on its head a white spot, after the fashion of a diadem. It scares all serpents with its whistling. It resembles a snake, but does not move by wriggling, but by the centre forward to the right. It is said that one of these, being killed with a spear by one who was on horseback, and its venom flowing on the spear, not only the man but the horse also died. It spoils the wheat, and not only that which it touches, but where it breathes, the grass dries, and the stones are split."
The basilisk is often referenced in literature, used as an ill omen or figuratively to describe characters. Shakespeare and Charles Dickens both refer to the basilisk in their works in none too pleasant a manner, and biblical references abound throughout the various translations and editions. And though Leonardo may have been incorrect in his assumption of this creature's existence, researchers could not help but give in to the poetry of this myth, naming a South American lizard after the basilisk. While not as lethal as the mythical basilisk serpent, this basilisk lizard is capable of its own amazing feat, as it is able to run on water. As with most mythical creatures, the basilisk finds its origin firmly rooted in Greco-Roman mythology. One of the oldest descriptions comes to us from the historian and natural philosopher Pliny the Elder, from whom Leonardo da Vinci drew his information. From the descriptions of Pliny and Leonardo, many aspects that are familiar to us in real animals become apparent. At first, the way the serpent carries itself is quite similar to the manner in which most cobras often move about the environment, lifting their heads off the ground for both enhanced vision of the surrounding terrain as well as augmenting the already intimidating presence the snake has. Furthermore, the various frills and colorations of the basilisk are quite similar to various cobra species, some possessing a diadem-like spot, such as the king cobra, or having a sandy coloration, such as the Egyptian cobra. Spitting cobras are able to project their venom a great distance into the eyes of their victims or attackers. This ability would easily explain why the breath of the basilisk is considered poisonous, as it would indeed appear as though the snake were breathing toxins at its foes. If one assumes the basilisk is indeed based on cobras, many more fantastical aspects of this myth find their explanation, such as the basilisk being able to kill by proxy or scorching the earth. These myths can be explained in that many cobras and other similar snakes are often still lethal after death. A brave basilisk slayer lifting his trophy to display can easily find himself bitten by the dead snake, which will result in his death shortly thereafter. Since cobras and their ilk tend to occur in dry desert environments, the myth of the basilisk could quite easily confuse causality in the eyes of any casual observer, leading them to believe that the snake brought about the desert, rather than the snake merely being attracted to that harsh environment. And lastly, the weakness to weasels is already seen in nature, as cobras are often attacked by the mongoose, which is highly resistant to cobra venom. Without the aid of modern taxonomy, the layman observing the mongoose would easily mistake it for a weasel, as it fights a cobra. While no individual cobra possesses all the traits of the mythic basilisk, it is not difficult to see that this creature finds its origin in an amalgam of various reports regarding several cobra species. Already, much of the myth of the basilisk can be seen to be an over-exaggeration of various real creatures. Therefore, the challenge in this reification lies not in grounding the myth to reality, but rather in justifying the over-exaggerated myth. Firstly, the origin of the basilisk must be considered. How might a snake be born from a chicken? There exist several possibilities for this, but the most reasonable takes the form of brood parasitism. Brood parasitism describes a strategy wherein a species will lay its eggs in the nest of another. This strategy can be seen in insects, birds, and even fish, the most famous of which is the cuckoo. The parasitic species lays its eggs in the nest of the host species, leaving their offspring to be raised by the host. Usually the parasitic offspring is larger than the host's offspring, and consequently the host offspring die off, as the parasitic offspring succeeds in keeping all the food the host parents bring for itself. In this manner, basilisk offspring might take advantage of the incubation provided by a warm-blooded species, followed by a ready food supply immediately after hatching, namely the chickens. While it is physically impossible for a rooster to lay eggs, it is perhaps not unreasonable for a sense of something unnatural brewing in an egg to affect only one gender of a species. Thus, the rooster rather than the hen may find itself compelled, possibly for defensive purposes, to guard the basilisk egg. However, this could also be explained by a rooster simply being more attracted to the pheromones a basilisk egg may have, rather than a hen. Indeed, when one considers that a basilisk is supposedly killed by a rooster's crow, it may not be unreasonable to consider that the rooster is acting out of defense in some way, hoping to kill the basilisk once it is sure that one resides within the egg. The shape and characteristics of the basilisk require little explanation, as these are hardly any different than what one might find in normal serpents. The weaknesses and abilities, on the other hand, are quite challenging. The venom of the basilisk bears much similarity to cytotoxic venom, which kills off living cells, and is often used in conjunction with neurotoxic and hemotoxic venom in real snakes to form a deadly cocktail, ensuring the death of whatever the snake bites. However, the effect this venom has on the environment is difficult to explain, as cytotoxic venom would not affect plants. Additionally, venom in general is quite metabolically expensive to produce, which is why real snakes only use it as a last resort when threatened, saving their venom for prey items. This makes the ceaseless discharge of the basilisk venom quite difficult to explain using an understanding of traditional venoms. As such, we turn to less common toxins that might act as venom for the basilisk, such as hydrogen cyanide. A few creatures use hydrogen cyanide for defensive purposes, such as the yellow-spotted millipede, so it is not unreasonable for a creature to produce such a dangerous substance from its own metabolism. While this isn't capable of killing vegetation en masse, a basilisk, acting as a font of poison, could certainly affect nearby grasses and the like. The post-death bite of the cobra is useful in once more describing the virulence of the basilisk's poison, but unfortunately it is very difficult to contrive a manner in which the basilisk might be able to scorch anything that it looks at. Perhaps you can think of a way in which this might be possible, dear viewer. Let us know in the comments below. Despite what may or may not be possible, one thing still holds true. The basilisk will forever be a symbol of fear and disdain.